You did not fail at self-control. You were never asked to exercise it. You entered with an intention. You exited with an expanded receipt. Between those two moments, nothing felt hostile. Nothing felt aggressive. There was no pressure, no insistence, no command. And that absence of force is the key. Because what changed your behavior did not confront you, it accompanied you. You were not pushed, you were guided. This is how modern commerce works when it works best. Not by arguing, not by persuading, but by rearranging the moment in which judgment should have spoken. To understand why recommended products raise your final price, you must abandon the idea that spending is primarily about desire. Desire is only the surface. What is actually being manipulated is something quieter, something structural. Your sense of when a decision is finished. The Stoics understood this problem long before algorithms existed. They did not speak of carts or checkouts, but they spoke relentlessly about limits, about internal boundaries, about knowing when enough has been reached. For them, the central danger of wealth was never abundance. It was limitlessness. A person with little but clear limits was free. A person with much and no limits was already enslaved. Seneca returned to this idea again and again, not because it was dramatic, but because it was subtle. He understood that the most dangerous forces are the ones that do not announce themselves. People do not drift into excess accidentally. They are trained into it gradually. Not through dramatic indulgence, but through small, repeated permissions. The permission to add one more thing. The permission to extend the decision slightly further. The permission to postpone stopping. Recommended products exist precisely in this space. They do not introduce a new desire. They extend an old one beyond its original boundary. You arrive wanting something specific. That want has a shape, a size, a price. It is contained. Contained desires are manageable. They can be satisfied. They can be refused. They can be evaluated. But a desire without an endpoint cannot be judged. It can only continue. This is the shift recommendation systems are designed to produce. They transform a discrete decision into a process. A process has no natural stopping point. It only has momentum. You believe you are still deciding about the same thing. In reality, the object of judgment has changed. You are no longer deciding whether to buy. You are deciding how complete you want to be. Completion is a dangerous word. It suggests closure, finality, resolution. But completion in commerce is infinite. There is always one more addition that promises to finalize the purchase properly. You open a product page. You chose the item. The price made sense. Then the screen offers a case, a cable, an extended warranty. Each one reasonable, each one small. Nothing that would justify resistance. And suddenly, you are no longer deciding. You are completing. Seneca warned that the mind is most vulnerable when it believes it is being careful. Because care feels virtuous, and virtue lowers suspicion. The Stoics spoke of impressions, of how the mind receives a suggestion and decides whether to assent to it or withhold judgment. Freedom, for them, lived in that pause, between impression and assent. Modern platforms are engineered to remove that pause, not by speeding everything up overtly, but by inserting themselves after assent has already been given once. You have already said yes. That is the decisive moment. After yes, resistance weakens. After yes, the mind reclassifies itself. It is no longer a judge, it is a participant. From that point on, additions feel cooperative rather than costly. They feel like support, like reinforcement. This is why recommended products almost never appear before the primary decision. They appear after. After the hard part is done. After the internal debate has settled. At that moment, the mind is fatigued. Fatigue does not feel like weakness. It feels like readiness. Readiness to finish. The Stoics knew this well. Fatigue is when false judgments enter most easily, not because the mind is irrational, but because it is conserving energy. It seeks the path of least resistance. Recommended products present themselves as that path. They are framed as obvious, as standard, as what people like you do next. This framing matters more than price, because it replaces evaluation with imitation. Seneca was deeply suspicious of imitation, not because others are always wrong, but because borrowing judgment is easier than forming one. When you imitate, you do not feel coerced. You feel aligned. Aligned with a group, aligned with a norm, aligned with an expectation. This is why "customers like you also bought" is such a powerful phrase. It does not describe the product. It describes your identity. It implies that refusal would place you outside your own category. The cost of saying no is no longer monetary. It is psychological. Seneca warned that this is how luxury trains the mind, not by offering pleasure, but by redefining what counts as reasonable behavior. Luxury, in his view, was educational. It taught expectations. And once taught, those expectations felt natural. Modern recommendation systems perform the same education. They teach you what a proper purchase looks like. The base item becomes inadequate by comparison, not defective, just exposed. Incomplete without protection. Incomplete without enhancement. Incomplete without insurance. This is how prudence is redirected. You are no longer adding things because you want more. You are adding things because you are being careful. Seneca warned that care without limits turns into anxiety, and anxiety is never satisfied. By the time the checkout total appears, the decision has already been made. The number feels like a summary, not a warning. A receipt on a screen. A number you recognize but do not remember choosing. A moment before confirmation. That moment is where freedom lives. Not in refusal, in stopping. Silence.